In this video I'm going to show you how I do a painting of a sunset on paper using oil paint. I'm going to talk about the colors I use, the brushes, the substrate I work on, and I'll show you the steps that led to the final painting. Painting a sunset is a great opportunity for a landscape painter to use bright, warm colors. The usual landscape colors are often a bit muted. Nevertheless, I'm kicking off with titanium white. It's a rather boring color, and in fact it's not even a real color. Still, it's essential to desaturate other colors and lighten them up. You can't do without it. Next on my list is brilliant yellow reddish. The manufacturer is Old Holland, a Dutch brand. Great quality paint, though for some it's not liquid enough. In this case, I use it in the underpainting and in a later stage in the clouds, often mixed with titanium white and a hint of indigo blue. The next color is Scheveningen blue light, also an Old Holland color. It's a beautiful greenish blue, which I usually mix in small amount with other blues to give the color of the sky a little more body. Here it's the basic color of the sky, mixed in with a bit of brilliant yellow reddish and at a later stage a dash of cadmium yellow. Cadmium yellow is an intense color which I don't use very often, but when painting a sunset it's indispensable. Mixed with a little titanium white, it's perfect for the highlights in the clouds. Vermillion red is a bright color which tends a bit towards orange. In this painting I used it to a limited extent and only in combination with other colors, for example to give brilliant yellow reddish more of a bite. Next on the list is indigo blue, a dark blue that I use regularly, mostly in shadow parts, or like in this case in the ocean. I hardly ever use it straight from the tube. Here I mixed it with just a hint of brilliant yellow reddish. We are now in the color department that I use in very small quantities, often to give another color a slightly different touch. This one is umber green. In this painting I used it to make the color of the ocean a bit greenish, so it blends in better with the color of the sky. This is Old Holland violet grey, a soft purple that I often use when painting shadows, in this case in the shadows of the foam. I often mix violet grey with transparent white, causing the underlying colors to remain visible. The suggestion of the shadow becomes even stronger. These are the main brushes I used to create this painting. In addition, there are two other indispensable tools, my thumb and my rag. The synthetic flat brush is probably the brush I use most, especially in the early stages of a painting. If you should ask me why does this flat brush have a long handle, the answer is coincidence. I ordered it online and only when I opened the package did I see the long handle. That doesn't change the fact that I really like it. Due to the counterweight of the long handle, it lies comfortably in your hand. The stippler is kind of my signature brush. Like our cats, it appears in just about every video I do. I use it to paint smooth transitions, which will get even smoother with my badger hair fan brush. The synthetic round brush is my main tool for painting details, which means I mostly use it in the final stages of a painting. I do all my oil studies on 290 grams Canson paper. It's heavy and smooth and suitable for both oils and acrylics. When you tear it off, you'll have to keep remembering which side is the front and which is the back. They look quite similar. Reducing the painting process to a few manageable steps can be very helpful, but at the same time it's also somewhat artificial. Anyone who has ever made a painting knows that reality doesn't always stick to the program. Nevertheless, it can be useful to be aware of which phase of the painting you're in. For example, if you can't resist the urge to start painting details when you're in fact still in the underpainting stage. Setting up the underpainting is, certainly from a psychological point of view, perhaps the most challenging part of creating a painting. You are still miles away from the final result, but nevertheless it is an extremely important stage. In the technique I use, the underpainting consists of applying the large ground planes of color and the smooth color transitions that go with it. If you have done these carefully, you will have created a space in which you can paint more freely during the later stages. The realistic character of the image will be preserved by the smooth color transitions. To get the right color intensity in your underpainting, you often need more than one layer. Even more so when working on paper, because it's more absorbent than, for example, the MDF board I usually work on. In painting the first layer of the clouds, I'm mainly concerned with painting a smooth transition from the pink color close to the sun to the darker clouds on the side. Details will have to wait till a later stage. I use my thumb and index finger to determine the correct position of the reflections. The difference between drawing and painting is that when you draw, you use lines to define shapes, while when you paint, you use tonal and color differences. This means that in an otherwise painted environment, it's better to avoid drawing details instead of painting them. In everyday painting practice, this means that you try to avoid hard edges and always create a buffer zone between, for example, the highlights and their surroundings. That's why I always start from a mid-tone, the buffer zone, and work my way towards the highlights. As a result, the details will be embedded into the painting, instead of remaining an isolated point or line. I mentioned earlier that the details of the clouds had to wait until a later stage. This also includes the somewhat ragged edges of the clouds. I like to paint them using the color of the sky. Because of the rough first draft of the clouds, they often take up more space than I intended, and this way I can restore that and paint the details of the clouds' edges at the same time. It doesn't matter to me whether my painting is a mess up close. The only thing that counts is what it looks like when I step back.